Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. This is Jasmine with Blakely Skincare, and I am here basically as a kind of expert DIYer to tell you everything that I know about my experience with skincare. I am an enthusiast whenever it comes to making things all DIY, so here's what I have to say. Today we're going to be making a super simple recipe. This is called Ghost Marshmallow. Now, you guys can go ahead and pause to read the disclaimers, little footnotes about the formulas and the phases that we're going to be doing. And then the links are below in the description. So this is, we're going to start with the ingredients here. Our base butter is going to be Kokum butter. Kokum butter is a very dry, brittle butter and at least kind of a soft powdery finish. And then here we have our BTMS. No, sorry, this is not BTMS 50. This is cetyl alcohol. I'm so used to using it. My bad. To give it kind of like a nice, creamy, rich type of feel. And then this is our isopropyl myristate. And this is a oil substitute. It is synthetic and it's very, very ultra lightweight. If you don't want to use this, you can use fractionated coconut oil. It just won't be as lightweight. And we're going to go ahead and melt everything down and get a bowl out to begin to mix things. As you can see, not everything is 100% melted down in there, but that's okay because there's still heat in there. So I'm just mixing it up until everything is all the way completely thoroughly melted. Melting a hard butter like Kokum butter is very important because if you don't, you will likely have a gritty butter. There are butters that you do not need to melt whenever it comes to making body butters. However, melting them just gives you that like sure, guaranteed, no gritty type of feel. And because you're melting everything down, you're going to need to let it set aside and cool. You can also freeze the bowl before you put it in there and it'll help the cooling process. I am going to be freezing it to save us a little bit of time. So here it is. Whenever it's frozen, this is what it's gonna look like, or whenever it's ready to start mixing, it starts to turn into this whitish type of color, and you want to scrape everything down from the sides. Here's our blueberry oil. It's unrefined, and this kind of gives it a specific light hint of blueberry scent. It's really cool. It naturally comes colored like that, which is awesome. And then we have our marshmallow fragrance. This makes it smell basically like a marshmallow. It is like a vanilla type scent, but what you would think about when it comes to marshmallows, like extra creamy, not so much of the spice of vanilla, but just like the rich kind of creaminess of it. And then here we have cornstarch. Cornstarch is known to cut down on the greasiness when it comes to butters and also help leave a kind of silky feel afterwards. So this butter really does that in that sense. Before I go ahead and mix everything, I'm gonna kind of just get everything wet, especially the cornstarch, because it will start to fly around there. And you can even after this point just wait for it to completely cool before mixing it, because it does get a little bit messy even if you freeze it. One important thing to know is that it is always going to take a minimum, and this is with small batches, okay, a minimum of 24 hours to get your final texture, because it is going to thicken up and harden up, especially Kokum butter. All butters will thicken up. And then you just kind of have to play with the balance of ingredients to see how much it's going to thicken up. But it definitely is going to thicken up in the next 24 hours. So you always want to wait until you get that final texture. Even before that, even if you freeze it, it just will not get to its final texture that you're going to get before you, before that 24-hour mark. Even leaving it and setting it overnight, it's still going to get to, overnight is fine, I guess, but yeah, you just outside of the freezer and room temperature, at least like 12 to 24 hours or overnight is the time that you're going to need to see what that final texture is going to turn out to be. You can change this butter out with any other butter, but it just may not be that ending finished texture. So I specifically did these ingredients and called it Ghost Marshmallow because of the scent and because obviously it's October. But this really does go on, and melt into the ingredients are designed to give you this effect. It melts into the skin so quick. It's almost like you didn't even put anything on. It ghosts on your skin so fast, and it leaves this velvety finish. So it's not even, a lot of people freak out when it comes to body butters and being greasy. Body butters are inherently going to be greasy because, well, they're made of oils, both solid and liquid oils. And so it's going to inherently be greasy, but what matters here is the absorption rate. I also like to look at the comedogenic ratings, but that's a whole different story. These ingredients are mostly non-comedogenic except for the isopropyl myristate. It will be non-comedogenic if you use between 5 to 10% in your formula. So there's that, but it's a super lightweight type of oil, I guess you could say. And so this goes on super smooth and silky and leaves a powdery finish, almost like it was never there. And that's what I really like about that. And then you can just smell the smell. So it's almost kind of like a fluffy, buttery body oil, if you will. And it just disappears into your skin. It's crazy. So you see me mixing it here. I'm mixing it quite a lot. It just kind of kept splattering. It was pretty annoying to mix, but I wanted to kind of bring you guys, into the process with me as much as possible. You really can avoid this by just letting it set for the hours that we talked about. One thing that I've gotten with people, even though I've put it on the instructions, is like, make sure you wait for that time. They're like, oh, well, I've mixed it. It's been 3 hours. I'm like, yeah, wait, I promise you. And so with that, if for harder butters, I would say like a 60-40 or 70-30 ratio is good of mostly oils if you want to get that fluffiness type of texture. And then if you do want a more firm butter that's going to harden up, then you're going to want to just go higher with the butters from that point. For soft butters like shea butter, mango butter is kind of in between. It really depends on the kind you get in the season. It can be more firm sometimes, at least it used to be. And then at times it could also be very soft. So like a shea butter and like mango butter, and I'm sure there's a few more that's not coming to my head right now. Those are soft butters. I would go more towards like 50-50 or even 60-40 with a little bit more butter than oil to kind of get that fluffiness, but that also not so much so that it's like runny and mushy, because the more oil you put in a butter, also the lower the melting point is going to be. So you're going to have a butter that's going to melt quicker. I tend to like to use dry brittle butters. That's just a personal preference for me in my body butters. I do like them in creams as well, but in creams, like where you use water, I think it's the perfect type of environment that you would use a more oily type of butter, like cocoa. Cocoa butter is a hard butter. It's really hard. You will need to melt that down. It's not really brittle though. It's very, very oily and emollient and rich with oils. So, but that's another one that would get a similar type of texture to this. It might harden a little bit more. And then your dry brittle butters, the two driest butters that I've worked with are refined sow seed shorey butter and Kokum butter. They crumble, like you'll get little crumbs everywhere. But I really love the properties of both of these butters because they give you that powdery type of finish, as to where other butters may give you like kind of leave behind that oiliness a little bit, and you'll be more moisturized. You'll have kind of like the little afterglow of the oils on your skin. But there are some people that don't like that. So you can also play around with different ones. Like sometimes you can even mix them up. Like if you do Kokum and shea butter, that's like a dream mix because you get the best of both worlds. I like to use a little bit more Kokum than shea personally, just because I like more of that dry feeling. And see, even here, once I'm mixing it up, I do go back and forth between freezing it. I think I froze it like maybe 2 times. And just because you don't have to whip it for a long time. If you let it dry thoroughly, you can avoid having to whip for ages. And then so you'll start to see it gets pretty fluffy. As you can see here, we're going to get to the final texture of things shortly here. It's finally starting to thicken up. It's still not to its final form at all. It still gets like, you can kind of almost like soft snow. Is a weird way to put it. You can kind of like as soon as you push it, it goes in, but it gives you just a tiny bit of resistance there. Kind of like when you see the videos where they use the little fancy spoons and they, break the swirl of the butters. But this is like even lighter than that. It's even fluffier. And I love that the fragrance really lasts nicely on it, but that the oils almost disappear. But it doesn't leave my hands feeling dry though. That's the thing that I really like about that, is that I can still feel the moisture of the oils penetrating my skin. This goes on fabulously, by the way. If you use any like gel or water body serums, then this goes on fabulously after that, if you want to have like a nice hydrated but not greasy type of feel on your skin, because other ones will kind of feel greasy, but this is one for a lot of people who are looking for butters that don't feel super greasy. And so you're always going to want to give it what I call that final stir the next day, where you go and check on it. You make sure it's covered, nothing can get contaminated in it. Your house is at least like 75 degrees for the most part. That's kind of on the warm side, but still relatively like not hot. Like I live in Phoenix, so it gets hot out here. And then you want to come and just do one more mix uh with your mixers. And then even still, it still firms up a little bit more than this. This is still relatively, I think I let it sit for like another like 30 minutes before I came back, and I was doing this because I wanted to, make some content and then show you guys the texture of the video. It still does firm up just a little bit more, but it still maintains its fluffy softness. This is not going to be a product that you're going to want to ship in the summers. I'll be honest. This is going to want to be something that you sell locally, you make for yourself, and that you keep in relatively cool temperatures. You could store it in the fridge if you wanted to. I mean, that would help maintain it, but it's not necessary unless you live somewhere like where I live in Phoenix, where it gets, into the triple digits, especially during the summertime. But yeah, so let me know how you guys like this super simple recipe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.